The man collapsed mid-sentence. A sharp silence cut through the boardroom as David, a 35-year-old African businessman, suddenly bent over his polished conference table and vomited onto the documents he had been proudly presenting just minutes earlier. His colleagues froze. "David, are you okay?" Someone asked, half longing, half concerned. He wiped his mouth, embarrassed. "I'm fine. It's probably food poisoning." But across the city, similar scenes were unfolding. Men in offices, taxis, gyms, and homes were suddenly doubling over in pain, dizzy, nauseous, confused. Within hours, hospitals began filling up faster than they could handle. Emergency rooms overflowed with men insisting something was wrong with them, but no one could explain it. By nightfall, every news channel in the world broke into regular programming. A female anchor leaned into the camera, her voice trembling slightly. "Doctors across multiple countries have confirmed a global medical phenomenon. Men are exhibiting symptoms consistent with early-stage pregnancy." The studio went silent for a second, then chaos. "What?" David muttered in his living room, staring at the screen. Beside him, his wife exhaled slowly. "You've got to be kidding me." At first, the world laughed. Social media exploded instantly. If men were pregnant, they'd survive 1 hour tops. "This is going to be the easiest 9 months ever." David joined in, laughing loudly as he scrolled through his phone. "Honestly, women exaggerate everything. How hard can it be?" His wife gave him a long, tired look. "You really don't want to say that," David smirked. "I'm serious. I could do this standing on one leg." She shook her head and walked away. Within days, the joke started to fade. The first confirmed male pregnancy cases were announced by hospitals, then hundreds, then thousands. Morning sickness became a global crisis. Men who once boasted about strength were suddenly calling in sick from jobs they never missed before. David stopped laughing the first time it hit him. He was in a meeting when it happened again. A sharp wave of nausea forced him to run out of the room. In the bathroom, he gripped the sink, sweating. "What is wrong with me?" he whispered. Outside, his phone buzzed nonstop. His team was struggling. Deadlines were being missed. Entire industries were slowing down. Gyms became empty. Football matches were interrupted mid-game as players collapsed or ran off the field. Construction sites turned silent as workers sat down, exhausted and dizzy, unable to continue. Hospitals declared emergency overflow status. Beds lined hallways. Doctors were overwhelmed. And governments reacted fast. Emergency meetings were held across continents. Within weeks, new laws were passed. Pregnancy leave, mandatory. Free health care for expecting fathers, approved. Workplaces required to provide rest zones for pregnant men, enforced. Companies that once resisted change now rushed to comply. Pregnant employees are entitled to additional breaks. One manager announced proudly during a company meeting. A worker raised his hand slowly. "Isn't that what women have been asking for all along?" Silence filled the room. David heard about it later and didn't respond, because by then he was 3 months in. The exhaustion was constant. His body felt heavy every morning. Sleep didn't feel like rest anymore, and for the first time in his life, he understood fatigue in a way he never had before. One night, he found an old video on his phone. It was his wife, pregnant. She was sitting on the edge of their bed, rubbing her feet, smiling weakly through exhaustion. "I'm just tired," she had said in the video, "but I'm okay." David stared at it longer than he should have. He remembered how he had responded back then. "Just rest. It can't be that bad." Now his eyes lowered. "I was wrong," he whispered. At 7 months, David could barely move without discomfort. His back ached constantly. His emotions were unpredictable. Some days he cried for no reason. Other days he sat in silence for hours. He began avoiding mirrors. Then came the night everything broke inside him. He found another clip of his wife, this time crying quietly after a long day, trying not to show how much pain she was in. David covered his face. "I didn't see it," he said through tears. "I never saw it." By the 9th month, hospitals were filled again, but this time not with confusion, with anticipation. The world was watching closely as the first generation of pregnant men entered labor. David was one of them. The hospital room was bright, too bright. Nurses moved quickly around him. Machines beeped. His breathing was uneven. Fear replaced everything. "I can't do this," he said, gripping the bed. "You can," a nurse replied calmly. "You already are." Outside, crowds gathered. News channels broadcast live. The entire world watched as the impossible became reality. Hours passed. Pain came in waves stronger than anything David had ever felt. He clenched his jaw, shaking, sweating, holding on through every contraction. And then, a cry. The room went silent. Then another cry filled the space, sharper, real, alive. David broke. Tears streamed down his face as he looked at the baby in the nurse's arms. Not from pain anymore, but from understanding. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I get it now." Outside, millions of men watched their own experiences reflected back at them. Something changed quietly across the world that day. Not just laws, not just workplaces, but people. A year later, society looked different. Workplaces were more humane. Families were more patient. Conversations were softer. David stood beside his wife one evening, holding their child. "I used to think it was easy," he said quietly. She smiled. "Now you know," he nodded, and for the first time he truly did. A voice came through the end of the story, calm and reflective. "Sometimes, understanding doesn't come from explanation. It comes from experience. And when men became pregnant, the world didn't just change physically. It finally learned empathy." If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment what you would do if men could get pregnant.